Welcome everybody. Happy Tuesday. Yay.
Yay.
Yeah, cool. As you've seen, there's plenty of pizza and catering and stuff outside as well, so feel free to grab some of that at the end. So welcome. Those who haven't met me, my name is Craig Harvey. Welcome to the August 2018 edition of the Canberra Dynamics 365 user group. I'm going to try and be fancy and progress the slide. No, failed the first hurdle. Let's just go with that. Hang on. Focus. Welcome. Tonight's agenda. So I'm going to obviously welcome you through. If this is your first time here, you probably might have worked out the facilities are just outside the room here, so go out here. In the event of an emergency, the exit is out near the elevator that you came up with. But those of us from Microsoft, Dan, myself, or Gargan, and Mo at the back will help you out of the building. And the assembly point is down the street, Live Street, on the corner with the churches. That's in the event of emergency. What else? The user group is run by a committee as well. So even though Dan, Gargan, and myself all work at Microsoft, we have other reps of the committee. Where is Megan? Harvey's here, and a few others that are not present tonight. So it's a volunteer thing. If you ever want to tell us what you'd like to hear or if you're more interested in getting other people along, we're always keen for feedback. So tonight we'll go through that. Gargan's going to give us a 5-minute presentation on a special tool. Dan's going to do the main presentation, which is around Dynamics 365 and using it for event management. So I'm actually keen to see that because I've done a lot of event management stuff in the past at various organisations, so keen to see how Dynamics has come along. At the end, there's obviously a bit of question and answer time. I think it's pretty informal, it's a small group, so I think it's probably fair to say. Questions. Yeah. We are running it a week earlier. I don't know whether that's it or not. Not sure. Oh, Tuesday, winter, Canberra. Okay. Go through the notice board. So we're still running a survey. Some of you may have seen this before. We are running a survey, so if you can remember those letters at the end of surveymonkey.com, we'd like to
email me.
Yeah, we'll put these slides up at our site as well and links to that at the end of this. We've got a sort of a short URL. But we're also interested in feedback, I guess, around the content of all of these, so we can improve and bring in content if you want. So a couple other things around news. So this is a pretty interesting post that came out from the Dynamics team. There is now some guidance on how to use Postman with the web API. So if you're not familiar with Postman, this is an app that you can use to craft requests to call against APIs. And this is a particular documentation that shows you how to connect or authenticate and set up your environment to connect to a Dynamics 365 web API. So often you'll find you do a lot of these queries and craft your requests, so then you put that in your JavaScript or your Azure function or your Flow, depending on what you're using to call your web API. So I've included that. That's up on the Microsoft team blog site. I find that pretty interesting. But the other big news that's come out is we've released, or Microsoft has released the October 2018 release notes. So this covers what they expect to see between October and March 2019. So from October onwards, some of these things will be released. Now, I've included this disclaimer here because really what they were reminding you of is this is functionality. It hasn't been released yet, but this is what they're expecting to release so you can see what's coming up. And correct me if I'm wrong here, but this is a good place, what used to be known as, like, it was roadmap.dynamics.com. It was a really handy website for upcoming features of the Dynamics roadmap. They've gone to this format now where essentially releasing these release notes in advance. So, but remembering it's still a preview of what's coming, even though they're called release notes. So I think it's an ongoing thing as these are released. So that's largely it for the notice board. If anyone's got any other questions before we get into the next section, let me know. Otherwise, without further ado, why don't we get Gargan Deep Bhakti up here to present just one tip. Woo!
Thanks, guys. So I am actually going to go into the next slide. How many devs do we have in the room at the moment? How many testers and others? So this particular add-in is a Chrome add-in. It's called Level Up for Dynamics CRM. It's actually, you can go to the web store, download it. Effectively what happens is you go to the Chrome site or the Chrome web browser, and on the right-hand side there's a rocket that shows up this menu. So effectively these are quick actions that you can perform on your Dynamics instance. So if you are a system administrator or you need to perform certain things, quickly, you're integrating with other systems, you need to open up reference data entities and see data in some other entities, you can use these functions. It helps with testing of functionality as well. So some of the favorites that I have, you can see that there's 3 different sections. There's forms. So if you're actually selecting a particular entity, let's say you are on the contact form or the account form, you'll actually see these buttons appear at the top. If you are on a grid, or if you are in a view, if you are in the system administrator pane, or if you're not looking at an entity form, you'll only see this navigation and miscellaneous. So you can see that they are quick sort of shortcuts to actually get to points where you may have certain functionality. Some of my favorites are listed here, and I'll show you a demo around these, but because we're in the Dynamics 365 online world, in the SaaS world, there's a lot of administrators who manage multiple instances. So if you're in a particular instance and you need to go to another one, so let's say you're in dev, or you need to go to test, or pre-prod, or UAT, and you want to manage stuff, you can actually click on Instance Pickup, and that'll open up all the instances that are available in your tenant. So you can actually go away and pretty much select the one that you want and navigate to that. Who doesn't know what an instance is? Sorry, that was a trick question. I'm just trying to make sure that you guys are listening to me. So there's users and roles. So if let's say you've got an instance that's got hundreds of users, and you want to find out what their security roles look like. A lot of people have grappled with this, where we need to do reports, or we need to identify who's got what user role. You click on this, and it'll actually give you a list of all the users and the roles that they have, security roles that they have within that instance. Some of the favorites that I have are open list. So let's say you're working on a particular inquiry form, and that inquiry form has some reference data entities that you're managing within that inquiry form. Let's say category, subcategory, priority, things like that, or topics that you need to categorize your inquiries with. If that is stored in a different entity, you can actually open that list by clicking on the Open List button, which is right here. Type in the name of the entity, so that's your local name. So if I want to go to contact, or if I want to go to category, and your prefix is new, or in our case it's MCS, or if you've got a certain prefix as your organization's name, you can just type that, go to the entity itself, and it'll open up the whole list in a different menu for you, in a different window for you. I think I'm probably going to stop there, and I'm actually going to go through all of these as a demo instead, because there's no point just talking about these. If I just show you, could we do that, or no?
Oh, yeah.
Oops. Can everyone still see the screen? Yeah. So in this scenario, I can actually open up the account form. This is the rocket I was talking about on the top right-hand corner in the Chrome browser. That opens up that whole menu. You can click on Open List. It'll open up a window. Open List. Yep. So if I say Contact, because I'm in an account entity, if I go Contact, it'll open up all the contacts within the system. So similarly, you can actually go and find another entity that you're referring to in your form itself. The next one is all fields. So we've had scenarios where a form has a lot of fields being plunked onto it, and it's really hard for sometimes to actually look at what fields are available, or what fields are there for what purpose, and which fields have what values. So you may have forms which have multiple tabs, multiple sections. If I go to the all fields button, it'll actually show me what are the fields that have a value for this particular record. So you can do your testing, reconciliation, make sure you actually got all the data things like that. So that's quite helpful. The next one is workflows and business rules. A lot of the times we go into a new consulting engagement, we've actually already got a Dynamics instance in place, and it's hard for us to understand what workflows, what business rules have been implemented. So to go to the crux of it, you click on workflows and business rules, and that'll actually give you all the activated ones that sit against that entity. So if you've got a custom solution and you've got a custom entity that somebody's built for you, rather than going through solutions and bringing up the customizations, you can actually look at the workflows. They are hyperlinked as well, so you can actually go to the design of these pretty much. Yeah. Who knows what a workflow is? Excellent. We've got some engagement in the room. It's my tick for today. We've also had developers trying to understand what the logical names of each, especially if you're doing integration, you have to get to the logical names of these fields if you're integrating with other systems. For previously, you used to go to the solutions area, open up the entity, look at the attributes, and then look at the column where the logical names or the physical names were. So here you can actually just click on that particular button and it will show you the logical names for each thing that's on the form.
Click on it or highlight it?
Sorry?
Did you click on it?
Yep. So as soon as you click on it, it'll remain highlighted. You'll notice that it didn't actually hide them. There's another button that actually says clear logical names. So thanks very much for paying attention. So logical names gives you the logical names, and clear logical names will get rid of them. Yeah. And then once again, if you've got a massive form and you need to supply, let's say, mandatory fields in a particular form, especially if you're testing, right? What I see testers do is type ASDF or quality or ZXC, and it's just text, right? If I actually open up a new form here and if I open up a new form here, say, give me all the minimum values for this particular form, it'll actually look at all the mandatory values that are required for that form to be filled in before it gets saved. So in this scenario, it actually says account name can be a string, a phone number can be supplied, a date can be supplied, which gets defaulted to today, email addresses can be supplied, and it actually populates that form for you. So you can just go away and save it. Yeah. And last but not the least is God mode. Somebody picked that up. A lot of the times we have field level security applied to certain forms, which only opens up the fields to certain security roles who have access to, add data in it. So there's allow and deny privileges on those forms, on those fields. What God mode does is it actually takes away all the restrictions on a particular field and effectively gives you free reins on the form itself. So you can actually force certain data. So for instance, if you're in the middle of an approval process, and the approval process requires a different security role to approve a particular record, you can go into God mode and effectively change the behavior of a field which is security enabled and move on. Don't install it on your user's PC, because otherwise everybody will use God mode. Sorry, Avi?
Yeah. So like means if someone download this this app or like this ad thing, all the JavaScript or whatever we written can be bypassed.
Correct.
You just click that.
It's a developer tool.
Yeah.
It's not an end user tool. It's a developer tool.
But
So,
anyone can download, right?
well, it really depends on what your policies are. You're right. Anyone can download. What I would suggest you do is keep it in a closed sort of community.
Yep.
And honestly, users don't really go in and you can restrict it from a different perspective.
Yes.
Departmental, grouping, or you can apply certain policies to restrict that.
At the same time, JavaScript is only like a nice to have. You always can have server-side validation for entry fields and things like that. So,
Yeah.
Because anyone can disable it through an update. So.
Last one is customize. So you can see that there's a customize button here as well. And what it does is, as soon as I click on customize, it'll actually open up the account form in a customization sort of view. I can customize that entity. I would strongly encourage you guys not to do that, because effectively what this is doing is it's actually going into the default solution, and it's actually looking at the default solution rather than your package of work. It's actually going to the default solution, looking at that entity and allowing you to customize that entity. So there are certain things that shouldn't be done using this tool, but in entirety, it's quite useful. That's my just one tip for today. It's all of my 5 minutes.
That's right. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Sorry, I should have closed all these.
In the Chrome browser.
Get some mic.
To the post.
All right, thank you, Gagan, appreciate that. For the rest of the session, I'm going to go through I've got probably a good portion of what's in the new marketing solution. I'm obviously not going to get a chance to cover all that off today. We're going to look a little bit more around at just how the event management component works inside of the marketing solution. So hopefully we're going to run another session before the end of the year to get out the remainder. But I guess if we just go back to our presentation for a minute. Alright, main event. So I guess most of you in the room have probably heard about the new marketing solution, or at least not even had a look at it or read about it online to the point that this is now a new solution that sits inside of Dynamics. But it's sort of closely aligned to where, say, the Click Dimensions capability was for the ISV solution used to fill the same gap. It is the second marketing offering that we have as part of the Dynamics suite. The other is the Adobe Marketing Suite. And sort of think about it where they sort of sit in the market is that the Adobe Marketing Suite is your high-end, big tier, it's sort of big end of town of actually doing the full suite of marketing and journey mapping. Whereas this is sort of in that sort of middle tier, which is around sort of still campaigning, running your events, lead nurturing and sort of campaigning to the full marketing suite. But it goes over and above what it used to be, what was over the last sort of 5 or 10 years, which was just sort of straight campaign mapping. So whilst we sort of talk through bits and pieces of this, I probably won't go into a lot of depth over the entire piece, but what I will do is so that you get a sense of where it actually fits in the overall scheme of things here. A very good slide, isn't it? Okay, but it's still doing a lot of the multi-channel campaigns, and in the context of event management, you still sort of think, and what I will show you is that you would probably get a marketing email together, and you want to get a segment of data that's inside of your solution, you want to market it to them. In this scenario that I'm sort of building out today is more around a fictitious event called the Microsoft Tech Summit 2018. Don't think of it as a real event in this stage, but you sort of see that same sort of context. And the view is that we want to segment our data that sits inside of Dynamics to say we only want people in a particular industry segment where their title might be for technology, information officer, CIO, CTO, architect, technology manager, etc. You want to segment that out so you can actually send them an email about the up and coming event. But what you want to do is be able to track that entire journey from the segment that you've actually chosen all the way through to sending that email out to the point where they've actually opened up the email itself, they clicked on the registration button to go through to the actual event, they've signed up for the event, and then they go through to attendance. All the way through to completion after looking at what events they actually went to, what sessions they attended, and then sending them through a survey at the end to sort of get to the last part of the process to try and close out the entire loop. So I'll kind of show you through that, but what we're really looking at here is what's actually in the red. When we're looking here, we're looking specifically around, back to slide there, the components there where we're looking around the events management portal. We're setting up sort of sessions, speakers, sponsors, the entire event from start to finish. This is venues, locations, buildings, capacities, rooms, configurations, etc. And then going through the process of where we're going through the registration part. So many of you may have gone through this process before in some sort of Dynamics implementation where we've had to create an event. Event management didn't exist for so many years. Well, now it's actually built into the product, and it actually has been built in quite well. So we'll focus a bit on that. So 2 components to this. There is the marketing solution, which has the entire marketing suite, journey mapping, segment mapping, and all that kind of good stuff. But also on the event side of it has an event portal. as well. So built on Dynamics 365 portals, you've got the event management portal, which is there to sort of host core content that sort of sits inside of this particular event, captures the various different sessions, and you will sort of see as we go through this, you'll have the various different speakers, sponsors, the entire sort of tracks, session tracks, and the registration component through to the ticket sales as well. So with that, let's jump out of here and actually go into a demo, which is what we've all been here to look at. And as I said, if you're thinking of the context of where this might begin, we sort of start at the very beginning. You're about to host an event. You're an organisation that's saying, okay, we want to try and work out who we're going to invite. So we're actually going to go through this process. And inside the marketing solution here, what we have is what we call a customer journey. Now, probably before I get to that, when we're talking particularly around this before, we're talking about the segments. So in your Dynamics environment, you have N number of contacts and organisations that you currently do business with. For a particular event, you may not actually go to all of them and invite all of them to it because it might not be aligned to what they actually do as a job. In this scenario, what we're looking to do is set up a segment, which is basically a segment of your contact data that you want to have a customer journey built around to actually send this email out. So inside this segment, it largely is just a filter that's applied across your entire data set. And I won't sort of load it up here a little bit. I'll show you about what the actual query is that we actually run behind it. So in this scenario, what I've done is set up a query and a filter there whereby we're looking at the title, the job title of the individual. And if that job title includes technology or information or technology manager or so on and so forth, I'm trying to get a subset of my data out such that it can actually run this entire map and this process up and running. So we just wait for this to load up. Probably should have loaded this before. In theory, if we just wait for a slow connection here, but the idea here is that I can predefine a segment of members based on a query that I've built up, and you can sort of see it here. This is the end result for it. So it knows out of my entire data set, there is exactly 7 contacts that fit this particular mold. Think of this in a normal situation, you're probably going to have, hundreds or if not thousands of people that you might want to actually market this to. If I can just get this for you to come back, it makes a little bit more sense. But once the technology segment, or once this segment has actually been set up, you can then, and you publish this segment, that segment can then be used in a customer journey. In a customer journey, which is where, this is probably taking a little bit too long to set up here. If I go back into the customer journey and bring up Microsoft Tech Summit. Now, ideally what we want to do here is have this subset of individuals in that particular segment being used as a means to run this entire journey map. So inside the marketing suite, the idea is I've got my subset of individuals. First thing I'm going to do to them is actually send them an email. And this marketing email that we've sort of got set up in here, if I click on top of this, and come into this, I will just show you for a minute. We have rich email templates now that enable you to build up all these nice and glossy invitations or marketing emails. So previously, if you've all worked with Dynamics before, the email templating tool was pretty rudimentary. It used to give you some basic text information, you have to put some placeholders in it and substitute some of the placeholders with key information about the individuals that are being invited or the case was being sent or the marketing component was being done. All of this entire suite that I've sort of built up here, I built myself, dropped in the header, footer and logos, and then once it gets to a published state, then it's locked, it's fixed in that position. The idea is here, what we're trying to do is to invite people through to this, but also actually we have a button down here which is registering how you get into the actual into the solution. Now if I go through and I go back to this customer journey, you can see that in here, if we follow this through, and I won't focus too much on this because I want to get the end management piece, but we have, the first part is the segment that actually gets created, get that subset of individuals. All of those individuals are then sent this email. It'll get to a waiting point here, or a trigger, what we're calling it here, where we actually are then waiting to see whether or not people have registered for the actual event. So if people go through this process and they register, they pass this particular branch and they continue on until the event actually comes forward. If the email gets sent to them and they haven't registered, it drops down into here after a period of time and looks to see whether it's actually been opened. And if the email's been opened at that point, but they still haven't registered, then we might send a reminder email. So you can sort of get the sense of how this whole flow starts to get built up, and you can build these controls and drop in various different triggers here. So if they haven't opened it up, we send a reminder to go through it again, and if they fail to do that, you might come down through this process and go through to a follow-up call. So you then assign that call to somebody to go and call them directly. Now, again, if you've got hundreds, if not thousands of these contacts, you want this process to run for a period of time. Now, this entire customer journey is also live. So even though when the segment starts, we might only have 7 members, through a campaigning exercise and we're filtering through, we might add more and more to them. So it constantly stays live for the duration of this process. And as more contacts meet that requirement of that segment, more of them get added through to the process and you continue to invite them through. So that's the idea of what a customer journey is like. You sort of see the happy path here, that they obviously go through and they wait. So they have registered, they wait for the event, they attend the event, and on the completion of the event, what we might do is go through and send them through a thank you email, which might then have a survey, a voice of the customer survey at the end as well, to go through that entire process. So if we look inside of here, if we go through, not the images, go through to Gmail here, I'll give you a bit of an example. Do a bit of promotion for Gmail here. Okay, give them a leg up. Yeah, right, they need it, yeah. So you can see this is the email that comes through. It is, as you'd expect it to see, the way it is presented in the designer comes through the exact same way. If I go through here now and click register, it's going to take me away through to the portal, which is talking about the actual event. So I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself there. I'll jump back to this in a minute, go back into the process and see how an event gets created. But you can sort of see that process from segmenting your data, sending through the invites, getting invites going through. Now that I've actually clicked on that register for the event, I'm now at the actual registration process. If I go through this stage from here and I register, then that entire contact and that whole journey has been mapped right the way through. So you get all the statistics on that. So if we come back here, what we're looking for is the insights. So this is the strength and the real power of this solution now, is that, and if it just wants to load up for me, what we'll actually get here is an insight on how this map has actually been progressed right the way through. So where in the entire process, how many people have actually gone through it. So you can see at the top here, these little annotations at the top, 7 people started this process, 7 people got marking the invite, 2 of them went through to this process, otherwise 5 of them haven't even opened up the email yet. So we know that they're still sitting there. Now, after 3 days, you can get these to trigger at various different stages and set up different rules. But you can sort of see now that 4 of them down here, 1 has actually opened it up and has gone through with a reminder email. The 4 of them have just gone straight down through to an activity. So as this runs over a period of time, say this was 3 months prior to the actual event being executed, you can actually start to get a filter of how successful they are and where they've all gone through this process. But that's the journey mapping stuff. Let's go back into how events actually are managed. So as I said, inside of the event solution, and you can probably see as I toggle through here, there's a couple of different segments for the marketing suite. You've got your general marketing, which is what we were at before. Now you've got an event section. And actually come down through here, you can sort of see the settings. Now, if you're getting a bit of a view for where the unified interface is going, if you're getting a view for where we are in the web client today and where we're going to in terms of the future enhancements of it, this is where the administration side of where Dynamics sort of sits at the moment is actually being ported across to. So marketing's been built from the bottom up. It has been built purely on the unified client. It doesn't have a web client version. So you can sort of see now that if we're going down through this process, we want to actually go through and do some settings. You can sort of see how it's now going to be built up in the administration side going forward. But back to events, as I said, I built up an event inside of here called the Microsoft Tech Summit 2018. Sort of loosely based on what the Microsoft Summit was last year, got a lot of my content from it, but I've actually gone through and built the entire event from scratch into this solution. So you can sort of think about it, when we run an event, we've got to have the event in itself. It has its own attributes and characteristics around the name of it, what type of actually format it is, you know, what event type, is it a conference, is it a webinar, and so on. You know, what's the capacity of the event, where's the primary venue, where it's going to be located. So as I've done here, I've modelled this all on the International Convention Centre in Sydney. I've sort of set this up around an event that we're going to run over the course of a week in duration. You can sit down the bottom here under the schedule. It's got a start and end date, as you'd expect it to be for an event. And it's got a time zone it runs in. It's not a reoccurring event, but it sort of gives you also a countdown between when this event's going to start. So I've got this fictitiously set up to run on the 20th. And then on top of that, you've got a public-facing portal that is there to manage the content and sort of give people awareness of how to register and what kind of sessions are coming up, what tracks are and where to buy their tickets. So that's all within the general section. Now it has its own business process flow, as you would expect for a particular event. This can be customized again to be able to change it to meet your particular requirements, but largely it sort of sits there and models a standard sort of process for initiating an event, going through the preliminary setups, setting up an agenda. So what are the sessions and the tracks you're actually going to go through? Organising sponsors and speakers and all that kind of stuff. Then you've got the guest logistics, which is around what about hotels? So you've got to think for a large scale event here, we're going to have a number of different hotels. You're going to have pre-booked rooms for up to a couple of hundred people that we're going to allocate out. And then as registrations come through, you're going to manage people's bookings against those as well. And then you can go to a promotion sort of stage. And these might be some more marketing campaigns, you might get some more emails for invites and everything else. So you can sort of understand that we're probably up to this promote stage, which is where we are in this process already, which is where we've got the email invites being sent out to a subset of people. And you might have to go through another campaign as well. You might have to go through a secondary database to get other people included. And you might be running some constant marketing campaigns to get that done. Through the process, when you get to the end, after organising and you're going through your guest logistics and the like, you've got your hotels and everything sort of picked up, you've got all your flight details sorted, you're going to the promotion side. So you've got a marketing plan which really starts to engage from here on in. So that's where we started setting up multiple campaigns. But by and large, inside of this is the core of the entire solution. So when we look at the agenda, you've got to think, okay, so say on a large Microsoft event, and we do quite a lot of these, so you understand the format and the reason why they've built this in a way, it's actually could be modelled around how Microsoft might promote their events, is that when we have sessions, right? It might be a week-long activity, week-long events, and we've got sessions in there that are going to be running for an hour to 2 hours of the course of the day. We've got multiple sort of tracks being run that you've got sessions associated with, and then you've got speakers for each of those individual sessions. And then from that, you've also then got capacity in terms of the room where it's going to be located. So if we've got a particular keynote, we'll make sure that's in an arena sort of area, which might accommodate up to a couple of thousand people. So the idea is that we can forecast what we believe is going to be the attendance of these sort of events, but then you're going to have people register their interest in certain events. If you've been in one of these big events before, you're going to be there for 5 days, you start pre-filling your agenda for what you're going to have in terms of your sessions that you're going to attend, and then that will then start to drive the capacity planning of the entire process. So I'll go into a bit more of these as you sort of look at them in details. If you look at a particular session here, we've got a session. It's going to have its own agenda, which is going to have summary notes and detailed descriptions about what this particular session is going to be about. You can have objectives if you want to sort of set them up. You know that they're going to be part of a track. So this particular technical session is part of the Microsoft Tech Summit component of that track session. It's going to have a venue inside of here. So this is part of the International Convention Centre, but it's on level 2, meeting room C2.4. Right, and that particular room, if you went into that room, would have a capacity of up to, say, 250 users, I think. 84. Capacity 84 for this one. So the idea is you've got to get the entire floor plan set up, the capacity plan about where all the rooms, locations, etc. You've got to have the sessions already be constructed such that we sort of know what we believe the attendance will be. So you've got to be able to plan that capacity. And then you've got a layout and a format of that particular room as well, in terms of whether the rooms are laid out in a sort of a U shape or it's set up in an arena sort of setup. Has it got AV support? Has it got video conferencing? All that little information to sort of know that it's there and planned for on the day. So you've got to think that this just goes over and above just planning for the event. It's got capacity planning and stuff in play. But you've also got to get down to a point where once I set up all these sessions and I have all these tracks that we're going to run through inside of here, and I've got all the speakers that we have in here, and I've got their charge out costs for each of these sessions as well, you can sort of get the depth of how much capacity this entire solution has sort of been built into it. But when that all sort of boils down to it, the end user and the people that are actually attending these events are the ones that are going to be able to need to know what session's coming up and what information have we got to play for. So if I bring up Amy's event here. So if I have a look at Amy, Amy's been part of that campaign before. She was just invited through this particular summit. So when I click on register now, we'll go through the registration process. she'll get presented with an empty screen here. So as you would expect with Portal, this here is an anonymous view of what the actual event portal actually looks like. It goes through without even sort of logging in. I can go through and look at all the various speakers that I've got set up here. So all this content is set up in the event management list and then published straight back out to the portal. But you can see we've got all the speakers and let's see all of their sessions that they're actually part of. If I wanted to go through that and give you the background, a bit of history. I can go through into the sessions and have a look at this all before I've actually even started to register. So you can actually see a calendar view now of all the various different sessions per day. And then if I want to go through this, I want to look at the keynote, I want to have a look at particular who's actually presenting at that and what's this keynote all about. I've got all of the various different content to support about who's going to be presenting at that, what time it's on, and how long the entire process goes. So the reason why it says not available at the moment is that I've actually got to sign in to be able to be registered for this, the way I've had it set up. So if I just go through that process now that Amy's logged in, and I go back through to the sessions, I need to go through the event registration. So what I've actually set up inside of this is that there is and then what I've got here is some passes that I'm going to be purchasing for. So this is sort of linked up to a dummy payment gateway. The idea is here is that I might be getting the full 5-day pass, and I've got through the early, the early bird event. If I continue down this path and I check out, I can take that registration through to completion. Now that I've actually got a pass and I've been registered for the actual event, I can actually go through now and register my interest in okay, emulate. Fingers crossed, I've got that all set up.
I need that invite payment button.
Hey?
I need that invite payment button.
Now, we'll just do, we're getting there. Thank you for registering for the event. Okay, so now that I've actually got a session, I can go through to any of these sessions now and start registering my interest. So the idea with doing this is that this is pre-validation for the types of events that I may want to attend to try and assist in the capacity of sort of planning. See how this button's now turned to register? As soon as I click on that, I've now registered interest in that particular event. So as the pre-validation process for any event that's been coming up, as people start to register and go through and have a look and they start to mark off the various different sessions they're probably going to attend, it also informs the actual capacity planning for the entire solution. So if we get a day or two before the event and we've got 100 people more that have been that are registered interested for a particular event, then I can go and change the room out and then reallocate the room to manage those sorts of sections. So if I go through, I've registered for one there, now I can start building up a full catalogue of all the various different events that I'm going to attend. So if I keep going through, I can go and add those right away. I can separate this out into session tracks. As I said, you've got the option here to group some of these components together, and then I can click through and look at all the events just sitting in underneath that particular session track. And then want to go through again, go through and collect that and go back to my event. So when we look at this, we've got two aspects, right? We've got the public facing portal, which is obviously where we want to capture everybody's interest, try and get part of the payment process sort of signed off. This might be a free event, it might be a webinar. So remember, these are not only just for physical events and on a particular location. But the idea is we want to sort of get a view as we're managing this process, because we're in the promotion stage, we want to sort of know how many people are registered. And when they have registered, if I look through at Amy's details inside of here, I'm looking at the applicants that have gone through this process. I actually have a QR code specifically for that person who's registered now, so this can be printed straight onto a pass. It can be used when they actually go and do a check-in. So as you've sort of been to these events before, you go to the front counter, obviously the front door before you enter into the hall. and they scan your QR code. That QR code will go through as part of as a check-in component. But then as part of this as well, it'll actually show me based on what pass they've actually set up, what sessions are available to actually attend. So we've got 26 available here. Session registrations, as I said, we've just gone through this before, and behind the scenes Microsoft transformation, that was one that she just registered interest in. So I can actually, as a back-end administrator, see the full extent of what's been sort of set up, who's been doing what. Now, in addition to that, if I just go back to our little event here, part of what we're also looking at is some of the guest logistics around hotel. So I sort of said in here before that we've got, it might be for a large event, you might be sort of looking at hotel room allocations. So in here, as part of the Swiss Hotel in Sydney here, we've got 200 rooms allocated that are a type double at a per unit cost. So they can start running the financials for the entire event process. And then, as I said, you can basically start putting room reservations out. And as I sort of said here, now, as part of that registration process, this person has either purchased the hotel room as part of the ticket price. So there might be a deal where you might have that part of there. Or they might register interest for one of the rooms, and as a result of this, you send an email out with the voucher code for that particular room, so when they go and when they go to check in, they can bring in that detail as well. So it hasn't sort of fixed you in one particular mindset around how you should actually manage your venues and the like, but actually gives you the opportunity to track the entire capacity planning. Because the idea is that you run one of these events once, you use the data, you come out of that event into the next event you run, and then you refine it and continue to go through. So, as I said, that's venues, rooms, buildings. We've also got hotels. We've also got sponsorships. So you can sort of see at the bottom of this page down here, we've got a number of sponsors that we've put in. And again, you want to give them, whether they're gold, silver, or bronze type sponsorship arrangement, they want their information to be presented on the site. So they get free sort of advertising as part of this process, by depending on what the sponsorship arrangement is that you've got through there. But you can actually add all those sponsorships through here, keep again the sponsorship amount. So if they contribute gold, silver, or bronze type sponsorship models, you can keep a track of all the various different components there. So if you click into one of these, you've got all their details inside of here from what events and from the various different types that are actually going to go through there. So when we look at it, that's pretty much the process. But I guess what we're looking at here is that once we go through, we attend, we register our interest in the various different sessions, we turn up on the day, we go through to all the different sites, we attend some of the sessions on the event. We want to get to a point where we can get that feedback loop closed entirely. So you've seen that journey map that goes all the way through. The last email that gets sent out there, if we go back to this here and give you an example, is another one that says, thank you for attending. And then that would be the final stage, should have actually gone through that entire journey map. And now it's all about, presenting them a survey that we've sort of put together here, which will be using the voice of the customer, which you've probably sort of seen before. It'll capture all of that information. They'll take all of their feedback from that particular process, and all those results go all the way back through to the end user or the applicant or the attendee that actually turned up at the event. So that would sort of then close out the loop. So was there any other particular section in that? Was there any sort of questions that we've sort of gone through? Yes.
So with this event management, how much customization you did, or was it like hotel, sponsor, and those things are all out of the box, or you added them?
Absolutely. All of this, there's no customization at all.
No customization.
So all this is this is all data driven.
Okay.
So this is all about, as I said, you start the process. I mean, you can even look at it from the left-hand side here. You start the process where you define the event. Yeah. And from that, you've actually got to go through and then start building out some sessions. So even the photos and the imagery that I've got on the portal, if you're looking at this particular, this banner image here is specified in the event, just here. So you specify your banner image and it replaces that. So it's using a very standard template for the actual component. All the headshots that I've given for all the speakers, they're just associated with the speaker's icon. So there's a logo or an image logo that goes across with them. And the same with the sponsorship. Sponsorship's just got their own images that goes with it as well.
So it means it comes with the two parts. One is the portal part, which is the event, and another CRM part, right?
Yep. Yeah. So this is the marketing suite. The portal itself is hosted in the background. You can also manage, if we go back here, if we go to home, you can run multiple events at the same time. So it has, this is the event that we're looking at. There's other events that are being run. And then obviously when you click through to this event, it'll actually take you through.
So is there a limit on the event portal pages you were talking about?
Sorry?
Is there a limit on the number of event portal pages?
No. No. So it's just, oh, as I said, this is just a subsection of the same thing. So,
Didn't know if you were finished, sorry.
you go.
No, I just had a question. If you have an event that you want to add to a customer journey, would you go and deactivate an existing journey and add it to that, or would you just create a new customer journey?
So you basically can have multiple customer journeys running at the same time. They actually run for a period of time that you have it actually set up for. Yeah, you wouldn't necessarily need to put them all in the same journey. And I only sort of say that because your journey is pretty much set up there with a particular scope. So I mean, as I said, I mean, if you're doing this as a technology segment and I'm marketing the event, that's one journey you do for that. You've got to capture all paths, such that it actually closes out.
But if you wanted to invite an existing segment that we're already going halfway through a journey, could you do that, or would you not bother? Would you just
the segment's just a starting point. So as I said, that segment can be used multiple times. It doesn't, but as I said, if I've got two outcomes that I want from here, I can actually use this and build it into one journey. So I can start with, here's my target segment of individuals that I want to target this to. My first point might be a marketing email. My first point might be a trigger, and it might just sort of be, I might want to drill down even further. But if you sort of look on the right hand side here, I can send them off to a marketing sort of landing page, which might be sort of capturing some information. It might be, as I said, I've got particular ones around here being a scheduler. I can actually schedule some time when this next part will actually fire. Activities, events, the events and surveys. As I said, if I'm looking at an event, I'm actually dropping that event on the page. It already knows specifically about which event it's talking about. And we look at this here. Look at the properties here. It's pointing to my event that I've already got set up in here. So, we might market two events to the same person. We could have two events actually on the page that have a branch as to whether or not they should be both. So, how about anybody else? Questions while I last?
Does it have a mobile app functionality for, like, once somebody's registered and then they can pull up an app to see what function, what event they're supposed to be at?
No. So right now, it's one thing that I sort of saw with it where I thought this might be lacking. But with with the various different mobility components, you can sort of build a mobile app like this in any case and publish it out. The thing is, because your audience are not users of Dynamics, so they don't actually have a login, so therefore, they're using Power Apps and all those kind of components, not so much. But, for the people that are standing at the door, creating a Power App that does a scanner of that QR code and then updates their check-in inside of it, absolutely. I guess what I've sort of seen with this product, even though it's relatively new, to cater for the majority of the event planning component, but the execution part sort of still is slightly different. And as I said, everybody might run an event slightly differently. You might not get scanned in every time you walk in the door. You might not actually check in necessarily. You might not even run a portal, which actually shows you all the events coming up. It might just be a one day event, and they just turn up and the agenda's set for the entire day. So, but there's enough of the tooling there, I think, to actually manage that process. But I would say stay tuned for those sort of things, because I know the other event management modules that are in the market at the moment do have their own mobile app, and
As a user, once I've registered for a session, can I get a calendar invite? Looking like?
You could. It's event driven. It doesn't exist out of the box, but you have a workflow that would pick up on that event that occurred and take that date and time. But yeah, it's the same thing. It's that mobile companion, which is really about having all the things I've actually registered for. Now, the browser will render on your phone. So even though it's a web process, I can still go through and browse the actual portal, log in, and see all my attended tracks that I've actually signed up for.
So Dan, in that scenario, how do we extend this solution if we can't get to so marketing solution is a web, but it's a UCI client-based app. It comes with this app out of the box.
Yep.
So essentially, you don't need to spin up a new UCI app for marketing.
Yep.
But if you need to extend the marketing solution, you need to go to the web app.
Yes.
To do so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's right.
And the portal that you get, is that a separate install of a different type of portal, or is it
Yeah, it's part of the
marketing suite?
part of the marketing suite. So it'd be a separate marketing portal. If you've already got customer engagement, you've got other portals and self-service portals, they'll be hosted separately.
Yep.
Yeah, but so inside of here, you would have your your marketing portal,
So
and then you
just
can log in as an admin. Yeah.
It would just be an add-on to that solution, right?
Yeah.
Another question.
That's right.
Sorry.
That's right.
Can you pre-register attendees and send them some form of a token using the?
Yeah, so as you can see, I mean, I've done a lot of the actual work by registration through the portal. As a standard marketing user or power user, I can actually go through to the event and create, and sort of look at the attendees, and then go through and add registrations specifically for people. I can go through and add new event registrations. So if I want to go and create a new one, I've got VIP delegates that have already gone through this process, but know they're going to attend these five sessions. I can go and create a new event registration just here, pick the contact and pick the primary role. Yeah.
I was more thinking along the lines of if you're sending out a marketing communication where it says click here to register and you click it and it opens the web form, is it pre-filled?
Yeah, so, well, I mean, I guess part of that would have to be, I mean, the registration event is basically URL, which will take you any part on the page, but I mean, I'd have to take their first name, last name, etc. Probably have to be part of the request that gets sent out, the link that I'm actually putting it on. So in theory, probably could, but then I'd have to generate that URL uniquely to sort of pull that detail back. Yeah.
Because you already have that person in the CRM, so you can generate it from that. But
yeah, I mean, and you are logged in as well, so you're logged in at that point when you fill the registration out, you should be able to pull that data through. But I didn't actually look too deeply into that when I set this up. Yeah.
I think I've seen it in a demo. I think Microsoft's done on the product if you can do it.
Anyone else?
Your demo is like a big conference, right?
Yep.
With lots of different tracks and lots of sort of sessions within that.
Yep.
Can you scale it down and just do a series of smaller things like this?
Yeah. The idea is it's supposed to be able to cater for any size. Really. I mean, as I said, if I've got a 2-hour webinar and it's only going to be one session, and that one session is going to be the On24 sort of webinar type of session, you can set that up that way and just run it. So as I said, you might not even need the portal at that stage.
Yeah. I think a lot of typical use cases with public service agencies would be, we're going to run a couple of different public workshops. Here's the Sydney one, here's the Melbourne one.
Yep.
For some kind of information session.
Yep.
Yeah, so I think that would work well.
Yeah.
Putting the room information in here would be more easy than figuring out what Sydney and Melbourne offices can do for telecom stuff though.
Yeah, that's true.
Having a database.
Yeah, so I mean, as I said, it's as much or as little as I believe you'd need to be able to put into this. As I said, I mean, you may have no interest to know about internet connections and AV, points and whiteboards or not, but if they are, I mean, you've got to think of this from a planning context. We're going to bring people into the facilities they need. We actually know, capacity and layout's probably one of the big components. But yeah, as I said, it's highly flexible in terms of what it needs to be able to do, but it's following a particular format which seems to be a tried and tested approach to managing events. Do you have a question, Anya?
Yeah. So, what about the integration of those scheduler appointment with the Outlook app, and like they are naturally will come to Outlook?
Sorry, what was that?
So whatever the integration of Dynamics portal, the appointments and everything, bringing that information to Outlook, to the Outlook app.
Yes, I haven't seen anything in the Outlook app for this yet.
Because like I was thinking very simple scenario what Craig understood is, if you are a federal government agency, you want to run some seminar and you want to do it inside, right? Internally, so you have all this stuff as a user there, then you send the invite, the essay, and then you can take that appointment or the time slot they book to their calendar, push to their calendar and those things,
Yeah, so look, I mean, it doesn't create a calendar invite as part of the email. The rich marketing emails is what they're trying to do. They're trying to promote it as opposed to just booking an appointment for you. Whether it could be tailored or if there could be some sort of customizations there such that you can put a meeting request inside of the actual event that gets sent out as well. But the idea is I want them to present them to a landing page. All these marketing contexts is tracking how successful is your marketing campaign, at what point in the process did they jump off? Were they not interested? Did they not find it useful? But yeah, as opposed to just an Outlook agenda type meeting sort of solution. But watch this space. It's a brand new suite. It only came out this year. It's quite feature rich in terms of what they've presented so far. But will they start incorporating more features in it? I think absolutely. Mobility has got to be a big contender here because it's not there. But yeah, we'll see. But other than that, I can give everybody 4 minutes of their life back. Unless there's any other questions. Yeah.
Is there ability to upload files with all those details for floor plans, like rooms and stuff?
Well, I went through the process and set it up manually. There's certainly no bulk import or a template to sort of say here's your configuration, but you got to think that every building config is going to be probably slightly different. They do have, venues, buildings, rooms as a structure. And then they've got sort of sub-venues that sort of sit around that as well. So there's this multi-tiered hierarchical view, which can sort of account for it. But, capacity planning, that entire, the whole template of the entire plan, upload it. The thing is you can set it up once, you reuse multiple times. So if you've got the same events, same locations you set up, same venues, you can be reused multiple times. And you can template the entire event so that you can run the same event next time. So if you've got a reoccurring event that's running every month and it has, some pre-configurations in it, you can actually template it out and just have it all saved there.
But if you're aligned to the structure of the venues, the sites and the meeting rooms, you could load that data in, like bulk import it, right?
Yeah. But yeah, there's no out-of-the-box sort of template for you.
Yeah, it's weighing up how many rooms versus typing, I guess.
Yeah. Cool. And plus, when you've got capacity and you've got AV connections and you've got internet, whiteboards and all that kind of, all those attributes, you really want to take your data import template out and then pre-configure it all back in. So I hope that was useful. Does everybody get a bit of a sense of what is capable, a bit of a view? I mean, it was probably a bit of a high level view. It probably took me longer to set up than it did to me to explain it. But yeah, it's quite a powerful tool, I'd imagine. And if you look at the entire marketing suite, if we get somebody else to put their hand up to come and show the rest of the marketing solution, you can sort of see a little bit more detail about how richer campaigns and journey maps and segmentation actually works and the lead nurturing. There's a lot of information in there around being able to have a lot of our LinkedIn lead generations being with forms that are part of LinkedIn as well, and sort of the success patterns of that, the marketing templates from product evangelists and actually selling a product or a particular item. I can actually have emails being pointed through to a marketing landing page, and then so you can track that entire interaction and hotspots over the emails and stuff as well. So hopefully we'll get somebody to put their hand up and go through that. I think somebody over here might be nominating as a bit of a marketing guru.
We'll get Tony to install it.
Yeah. All right, so there's no other final questions. We'll probably wrap that up there. Thank you all for coming along tonight.